Welcome to another edition of Value My Vote, one-on-one with the candidate, and we're here with none other than mayoral candidate, Mr. Otis Rolley. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, not a problem. Thanks for coming on and sharing your time, sharing your values and your vision for Baltimore with the viewers and the voters. Just to give a little background, you came with a bang in Baltimore as a planning director. Then you were chief of staff. You have a very MIT grad, very stellar background. Why now, and why the mayor's office?
Sure. Well, really, I came in under the Schmoke administration.
Okay.
Working in the Department of Housing and Community Development as an assistant. Then worked in the O'Malley administration as a deputy commissioner and then planning director. And then I had the privilege to serve Mayor Dixon as her chief of staff for her first year, which, as you remember, was O'Malley's last year. Well, people have asked me that. Okay, well, Otis, why are you running for mayor? And I've answered them the way I'm going to answer you. I said, why not? The time is right. Baltimore's at a tipping point. And my entire career here in the city, the last 13 years, really has been in the executive branch, serving the people of Baltimore, right? Really trying to move programs and policies and plans towards implementation. And I think people are ready for real leadership. Not pomp and circumstance, not some of the political rhetoric and song and dance, but real leadership. And I've tried to show and prove. I think you've had different mayors actually who each one gave me more and more responsibility because I was delivering. I was helping to push their agenda forward, and now I want to push my agenda forward, and that's why I'm running.
Now, and I have to ask, it's the elephant in the room. Of course, I've reported on it, and I've asked, it's a rumor out there. It's a very crowded field in the mayor's race. What's the likelihood that Otis Rolley, by the July 5th deadline, says, you know what, maybe I'll serve Baltimore as the city council president and run against Jack Young?
Well, it's weird. The only place I've heard that rumor has been from you. So I would love to know your source because no one else has said this to me. But let me state very firmly, I'm running for mayor.
Okay.
My entire career has been in the executive branch, has been in operations and management and administration, service delivery, not in legislation, not as a legislator, not as a policy wonk, but actually doing stuff. And so I want to continue to do stuff as the mayor. That's no disrespect to the council. It's just not my calling. So I'm not seeking to be the council president. I'm seeking to serve the citizens of Baltimore as their 50th mayor.
That was probably the realest and most straightforward answer I've got from a lot of the different people that we've run. So I definitely appreciate that. Now, what does Otis Rolley bring to the race that the other candidates don't?
Well, it's a number of things. It's education, it's experience, right? And then I think it's an issue of kind of commitment to the city. So I want to start, education. You mentioned, I have a master's in city planning, right? And the reason why that's important is because I'm running for the office of mayor, which is a real job here, right? And the person who is the mayor is actually running the city of Baltimore, right? So I think it's important for you to be trained in what you're supposed to be doing. You're not going to go to a lawyer and ask them to operate on you. You're not going to go to a doctor and ask them to defend you in court. You want to make sure whoever you're seeking to serve in the capacity that you need is doing it and is trained in what they're supposed to do. And so I've been trained in understanding cities, the complexity of cities, and what needs to be done to fix them, looking at other cities in terms of best practices. So education is important, I feel. And I have the educational pedigree to I think, move Baltimore in the right direction. The other piece is around experience. Unlike many of the other candidates, many of them have run for elected office. Their experience is politicking. Their experience is in the electoral process, but not necessarily in governance, right? What are the projects that they've moved forward? What legislation has moved from an idea or a concept or a resolution to real action and activity within the community? You haven't seen it. And for me, there is experience, there's proof in the pudding. I was at a community meeting in Sharp-Leadenhall, and the community leader said to me, after she introduced me she said to me and to the crowd, she said, well, this guy who's running for mayor actually did our community plan. He's been here, he knows us, he's not a stranger to our community. And so at Housing and Community Development, brought the second Urban Main Streets program to the city of Baltimore. Boston had the first, second was here, I brought it here. When I was the planning director, I started doing neighborhood plans, then community plans, then a citywide plan for all of Baltimore. It hadn't been done in almost 40 years. I did that, and as chief of staff, served Mayor Dixon for her first year, which even the governor has said, and this is a matter of public record, said she did more in that first year than he had done in the previous 3 years, right? So I'm proud of my work. And so that experience, being as comfortable in the boardroom as you are on the corner, being able to work in communities as well as in corporations, that experience matters. You need a mayor who understands how to do that, and I can do that. And then the final piece I say is around commitment to the city. You know, it's been said, okay, well, you weren't born here. But the reality is this: I got here as soon as I could, and I've been here, and I'm committed to Baltimore. I fell in love, got married here, had 3 kids here. You know, my daughter attends public school, the other 2 are too small to be in public school yet. You know, I moved my mom here from Jersey, moved my sister and her husband and their 3 kids here from Maine, and my other sister and her husband, their daughter, here from Philadelphia. This is my town. I love Baltimore, you know, and I'm committed to its success. And I'm tired of the excuses from politicians who don't know how to move an agenda forward or even to set an agenda. So I think that's where you have the education, you have the experience, and the commitment to excellence that I've had to fight for since I was 13. I've been working since I was 13 years old, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. You know, I think Baltimore needs a mayor like that, and I want to be that mayor.
Well, you're definitely braver than me, because my 4-year-old is in private school, and he will continue private education until Baltimore gets their act together. And speaking of that education, the city of Baltimore, obviously Maryland's supposed to be #1 in the countries. I don't see it. Baltimore City and Prince George is always at the bottom, 23 and 24 of the totem pole. But Baltimore only invests 15% of the entire budget into education, when 40 to 45% goes into crime and safety. Would that same imbalance be a part of the Rolley administration, or how would you change that?
No, I've been talking over and over again about my commitment to reprioritizing how Baltimore City government works. The first position paper that I put out, the first one out, was around rebuilding Baltimore's government. At otisrolley.com, you can pull the document up, and I talked about rebuilding Baltimore government because before we can talk about fixing our schools, which we have to do and which I would prioritize doing, before we can talk about economic development and economic opportunity, any of those things, you have to talk about the service delivery to do those things, and that's our city government. And it doesn't need to be tweaked, it doesn't need to be reformed, it has to be rebuilt. Right? And so part of that rebuilding is resetting priorities. And right now, the children are not a priority. If everyone in the city knows that you have a 50-50 chance of your child graduating if they go to public school, that is completely unacceptable. There should be riots in the street about that, right? And any government that sees that as okay is not okay with me. So no, there will be changes in terms of how I prioritize funding and spending. More money would go towards creating opportunities for not just the young people, but for all Baltimoreans, as opposed to investing in their failure. And that's what we've seen over and over in these past administrations. And that's why, part of the reason why I'm running, because I know we can go in a different direction and start to show real success. There are other cities doing it. And this down economy, you hear from the current mayor, you know, over and over again, well, you know, we're doing what we can with what we have. It's a bunch of nonsense. They're not. They're not doing what they could do with what they have. Their priorities are out of whack, and that needs to change.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you see Rick Perry in Texas, they have a surplus time and time again, even in this down economy, because they're prioritizing down there and down south. So speaking of that, back to your experience, you did put together what was called the Park Heights Master Plan. Obviously, people such as myself who originate from there love that, and had a master city plan. What happened to it, and where is it at? And under a Rolley administration, will we get that back?
Well, I'm pleased to say at least the Park Heights Master Plan is still moving forward in terms of implementation. The citywide master plan has been abandoned because the current mayor, you know, does not accept it, though she voted for it, which I think is interesting. Because, you know, a number of my positions were appointed by mayors, and she voted to confirm me in a number of different times. So, but the reality is this: is that the Park Heights Master Plan, we have an area that had, you know, over 35 years of disinvestment. The implementation is not going to. We're not going to transform Park Heights and those 12 neighborhoods overnight. But we have been seeing, and we continue to see, investment in the human capital there. Over the last 3 years, funds from the Park Heights Master Plan has gone towards youth jobs and youth opportunities, workforce training, substance abuse assistance within the Park Heights community. And so, because the community said to us during the planning process, before you put a shovel in the ground before you touch a brick, you better invest in the people. And you're 100% right. And that's why what was also great about the plan, it was a comprehensive plan that looked at physical development in terms of the bricks and mortar, but also human development. And so we're seeing that. The Park Heights Renaissance, also really trying to streamline the activities through one CDC instead of sprinkling money to a bunch of different CDCs, and really not being able to help in the way and manage in the way that where you can be very effective. So you're seeing some of the progress. It's not as fast as I'd like to see. As mayor, I'll be stepping on the accelerator there and in other places, but the citywide plan has been abandoned by this current administration.
It has. And speaking of that, another thing that has been abandoned by this administration was called the Land Bank Authority. It dealt with the 47,000 plus vacant housing in the city of Baltimore. It was there, a lot of energy, time, and effort went into this. A whole big effort that was stalled when the former Mayor Dixon went to trial, and as soon as this administration went in, they killed it. Now they have a vacancy to value. What would the Rolley administration do to curb this growing problem here in the city of Baltimore?
Well, a lot of work went into, and you know this, a lot of work went into thinking through the land bank and how it could make sense and how it could help to streamline some of the dysfunction that currently exists within Baltimore city government. And in my administration, though, before we would begin to move on the land bank, and that's why I know I keep going back here, but it's important, we have to fix Baltimore city government, right? So part of the premise behind the land bank, though, was if we're going to, we have to do this because the city government is so broken, right? And so instead of fixing the problem, we were going to create a new entity to try to deal with disposition, selling and acquiring of city land and city properties. I believe, actually I know that we can fix the Department of Housing and Community Development. I know we can fix it. We can put in competent staff. We can put in competent leadership, competent, committed, courageous leadership that are vested in housing and community development and not just housing. And that they can go about disposing or selling of properties in a streamlined way, in a non-corrupt way, where you're helping to heal and rebuild our neighborhoods. And I would like to start there, and then we can begin to have a frank conversation about creating a separate authority.
Why is Otis Rolley better for Baltimore more so than Stephanie Rawlings-Blake?
Well, the reality is I'm not running against the current mayor or anyone else who thinks about running. I'm running to connect directly with the voters of Baltimore. So the reason why I think I'm better than anyone else is running is the same way when I'm applying for any job. I'm trying to communicate to the voters that I'm the most qualified candidate, right? And it goes to education, it goes to experience, and it goes to commitment. I fell in love here. I got married here. I had 3 kids here. This is my home, and I'm tired of the nonsense. I'm tired of the foolishness. I'm tired of us making bad decisions, and going in the wrong direction to really please people who are writing checks for different candidates as opposed to thinking of the overall health of my city. And that ticks me off. We're closing down rec centers when other cities, comparable cities, with less of a budget than us, are opening rec centers. We're closing down schools and taking money out of the youth and youth services, and that's the current mayor doing that, right? While other cities, comparable cities, are investing in those things. And so why am I different? Because I understand these things. I won't be doing what I'm told. I'll work with the governor. I won't work for the governor. That's how I'm different, right? Because a mayor needs to be independent, fighting for their city. So that's another way that I'm different. I will be fighting for Baltimore, and no one will be able to kind of snow me on municipal finance or on the complexities of deals or on any of those things, nor will they be able to convince me that we shouldn't prioritize our youth and create an economic opportunity for the people of Baltimore. Because I know what a job does for you as an individual. I know what it does and how you deal with your family, your block, your neighborhood, your city. And that hasn't been a priority for the current administration.
What if the people want to fight for you? How do they get in touch with you?
If they want to fight for me, they should go to www.otisrolley.com, which is OTISROLLEY, or call 410-338-4036, 410-338-4036. Or just come to campaign headquarters, which is at 814 West 36th Street, Baltimore, Maryland.
Otis Rolley, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
for your candidacy and running for mayor, and definitely appreciate it and wish you all the best.
I appreciate it, man. The city's worth fighting for.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more Value.